So we all know Vice President Joe Biden can give us crazy lines at any moment. The man does not know where he's at half the time. But who knew that Vice President Joe Biden can give us a great comeback? And what do I mean? Just take a look what he said at USA Today.
Someone had told you even a week ago that you would do so well on Super Tuesday, that you would be outright winning states you never even set foot in. Be honest, would you have believed them?
Yes, we believe we would. I was certain we'd win Virginia. I was certain we'd win North Carolina. I was certain we'd win Alabama. I was certain we'd win other states. But as big as it was, I was a little surprised about Massachusetts. I was surprised about Minnesota, and I was hopeful about Texas.
Let's talk about Mr. Sanders. He has been talking about your victory. He said Joe is running a campaign which is obviously heavily supported by the corporate establishment. What do you think about that argument?
It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. Bernie, you got beaten by overwhelming support I have from the African-American community, Bernie. You got beaten because of suburban women, Bernie. You got beaten because of middle-class, hard-working folks out there, Bernie. You've raised a lot more money than I have.
Jesus.
I mean, he makes a point.
He does.
He does. All right? Even though he was losing in Iowa, he was losing,
He lost Iowa.
He lost Iowa.
He lost New Hampshire.
He lost New Hampshire.
He lost
Nevada.
He was dead man walking.
Pretty much, yeah. He was dead man walking, right? But what do the progressives feel about his comeback?
Let's ask Cenk Uygur
from the Young Turks.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think in the end, Bernie will lose.
No, Biden does not win that war.
I'm not. No, Bernie. That's why I didn't say Biden will win. That Bernie will lose somehow, combined, whether it's Biden or a brokered convention and Mike Bloomberg is the nominee, or Elizabeth Warren is some compromise nominee, or Beto O'Rourke is the nominee, or Michelle Obama is the nominee.
Yeah, I don't look. I don't even. No, guys. 2020 is everything, and we're in the middle of it right now. This is Super Tuesday. It doesn't get any more real than this. So look. Fine, I'll do it. Okay, this I feel like I said this my whole life. Fine, I'll do it. Okay, no matter what happens tonight, if the establishment media continues to lie about Biden's record, we all have to go and collectively kick their goddamn asses. Of course, not physically. We're progressives, but yes, we will be forceful. You're forceful in your lies, lie after lie after lie after lie. Okay, we're going to call it out. We're going to be very, 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 very forceful.
Is he saying that there's this thing as fake news?
Yeah, pretty much. Agreeing with President Trump.
Okay, well, let's go on.
They say, oh, no, don't watch online stuff. No, they're illegitimate. We legitimate people lie on behalf of Joe Biden and the establishment. We're not going to take your lies anymore. Joe Biden did not get arrested with Nelson Mandela. Who makes up a lie like that?
Joe Biden.
An incredibly stupid person makes up a lie like that. An incredibly immoral person makes up a lie like that. I would. Can you imagine if somebody asked you and you said you got arrested with Nelson Mandela? Stolen valor. That's what Joe Biden is. He's stolen valor.
Okay, let me just add, because I'd like you to.
Wow. Actually, he's not wrong.
But there's no such thing as fake news.
Welcome to this week's podcast of MM Talk. We are your hosts, Jaime Moreno
and Eddie Marmolejo.
Super Tuesday.
Wow.
The most anticipated election cycle. Now we're going to the playoffs. Now we're going to the real nitty gritty of what is presidential politics. We got rid of all the loser teams. We got all the teams who were pushed away by racism and misogynism and blah, blah, blah. And now we got the players, the champions, right? From there, we also look at how the Latino vote, was that a big impact? Was it a big impact or not? We'll look into that. Also, we would like to cover a little bit on coronavirus. I know many people are out there fearing coronavirus. It seems like something from World War Z or something from a zombie apocalypse. The media is like calling emergencies left and right. Videos on the internet. It's just a mayhem. And we will find out what's going on with coronavirus.
But before we get into those topics, please remember to subscribe to our channel. Make sure to follow us on Instagram and Facebook and Twitter. Hit those follow links. Make sure you tell your friends about us. We're growing. We want to keep that momentum going. Thank you guys for tuning in. And Jaime, before we get to the election, because we're really gonna divulge into a lot of things. Let's look into that coronavirus. A lot of viewers may be concerned about that. Wow.
That's how you spread coronavirus.
So tell
us. That's it. I'm just kidding. All right, so coronavirus. Let me give you a brief history, just short, down to the nitty grits of it. Coronavirus is a respiratory disease that's kind of close to the SARS infection. If you guys remember in the early mid-thousands, about the SARS virus and how that was going through. If you're too young to remember, Google it, SARS. If you're old enough to remember, you probably have some vague memory. It's pretty much a SARS virus with a crown. That's why they put corona, which is Latin for crown, which is Spanish for crown. And it is not the alcoholic beverage, famously known as corona. Okay? For those of you who actually think that coronavirus is a virus that only happens when you drink the beer brand Corona, please be assured we want to give you 100% confidence that it is not the alcoholic beverage. The Corona makers, Corona alcohol
producers have lost tons of money.
Yes. If you like Corona, great. If you don't like Corona, great. We're not advocating for them. It's a public service announcement. Corona beer is not responsible for the coronavirus. The memes are hilarious. No doubt to the memes. Memes are hilarious. I love them. But no, if you drink Corona, you will not get the coronavirus. So the 32% of you guys who believe that, stop.
Just make sure you add a lime to, just to be safe.
Yeah, pretty much. So anyways, now let's get back to the serious topic, right? So it's a respiratory disease. The symptoms appear about 2 to 14 days after you're exposed with someone who has it, right? So if Eddie has a coronavirus and he coughs around my area, or just like I did earlier, just wiped and just touched him, tapped him, I'm already spreading the disease, right? So it's pretty much, it spreads like the flu, right? It's kind of like that. That's how it's spreading. It spreads through contact from person to person. It spreads through cough and sneezes on infected areas like door handles, whatever public areas you could touch your hands with. Someone might wipe their nose and then touch the handle, or cough and then decide to, open the door, or sit on a table, move a chair around. Pretty much spreading like a flu. So it's not like, zombies walking around and like, oh, we're going to die, we're going to eat you, we're going to bite you, and you're going to get a coronavirus. It's not that dramatic, all right? Symptoms include, so if you want to know if you have coronavirus, which is 98% likely that you don't, but if you go to WebMD, you probably already have it and you're about to die within a couple of days.
So don't Google it. Go get tested.
So symptoms include fever, cough, and shortness of breath.
Okay, well, if you Google that, that's a heart attack or the flu. So, yeah, it's definitely, go get tested.
Yeah, if you think you got in touch with coronavirus, either because someone who had it or because you came from a country that has a coronavirus. I know a lot of countries around the world have large cases of coronavirus people or people infected with the disease. So if you come from those countries, especially if you came from China, or someone who came from China since around November, December of last year to now, big warning, big warning. Don't I'm thinking of Monsters Inc. Right, code, what's that?
We got a 2319!
2319? Don't 2319 your friend, but just tell him, go get tested. Dude, go get tested. 2319 and get attacked by the CDC. Don't do that.
Oh, yeah, CDC. I was going to say it's the CDA, but I'm thinking
that's Monsters.
That's Monsters Inc. Yeah, I know.
Pretty much, just to make sure you're cautious, make sure you're safe, make sure you're practicing health procedures, practicing health habits. Wash your hands. don't touch your face. If you touch things in public, whether it be door handles, chairs, anything in public, don't touch your face with it. Wash your hands frequently with soap and water. If you can't reach soap and water, use hand sanitizers. That works too. Just stay clean. Wash your hands. Don't be a cochino. And now wash your hands. Go to the restroom. Wash your hands. You cough. Wash your hands. So on and so forth. So just pretty much control. In the United States, there's actually just 11 cases of coronaviruses. So it's really minimal. Remember, we're a population of 300 million people. So that's like a high percentage, as high as Warren claiming to be pretty much an Indian. 1,000th of 1,000th, percent. All right. So it's 11 cases in the United States. It's not dramatic. It's not spreading like crazy virus. I know California just recently declared state of emergency, which was stupid. I don't know why we made that guy governor.
There's a cruise ship out in San Francisco was now being quarantined. Yeah.
So he declared a state of emergency. We got other things to worry about. All right, like homelessness, who are most likely to probably catch the disease, right? Or to develop new diseases coming from those camps. We have a whole feces around San Francisco, Los Angeles. I mean, there's a whole issues of public safety concerns more important than coronavirus. We're not saying that coronavirus is not important. Keep an eye on it. Just be careful. But it's not a pandemic disease affecting the United States. It's affecting China, a lot of Asian countries, a lot of countries around the world because they weren't able to control it. But because we have a racist president, he decided to close the border with China before it spread, and actually that helped, right? And the liberals are calling him racist because he closed the border with China before the disease came into the United States and spread, right? So whether you call it racist or just common sense, that's up to you to decide. But the liberals will tell you that Trump was racist for closing the border with China, which eventually helped reduce the amount of people infected come to the United States in the first place. Right. So, that's so much we have on coronavirus. I know we went through it quick. I mean, the information is there. Go to the CDC website. You'll get more information there. CDC.gov will give you a clear understanding of what coronavirus is. Remember, it's just like a flu. You have fever, cough, and shortness of breath. It's a respiratory disease. It can kill you, right? We've seen a lot of deaths coming from coronavirus because we don't know how to treat it. Recently, President Trump declared that he will get some vaccine to combat it, hopefully within a couple of months or within less than a year. Like we said here, there's only 11 cases in the United States, so it's really, really contained. For California to declare state of emergency is ridiculous. I think they're just trying to scare people because it's election year. So anything will be hyped up, anything will be scandalous, anything will be red flagged, anything will be emergency now that it's election year. And of course, we all know that everyone in the Democratic Party, which is our Democratic state as well, would like to defeat Trump. So declaring state of emergency because of what, 2 deaths? 2 deaths?
Yeah, 2 deaths too many, but you got to take a look at the bigger picture.
Yeah, 2 deaths too many. It is a misfortune, but it's not something to consider a state of emergency.
Yeah.
It's something to keep an eye on, to do research on it, find out, look at the autopsies and how it damaged and what could have been done. We do send our prayers and our condolences to the families who have lost their loved ones to this virus. I know it's so dramatic. It's so sudden. No one plans for these things, so we give our prayers and thoughts for them. Anything you want to add to the coronavirus?
Just really quickly, also in the news, like Jaime's they're hyping up this pandemic, and you got to understand that if you buy into it, it causes problems also in the market. Okay, it affects the economy. What do I mean by this? Okay, why are we talking about money? You got to go to work, right? Are you gonna be willing to go to work? I mean, just look what's going on with the Dow, the Nasdaq, and all that in the last couple of weeks, up and down, crazy, 700 points down, 200 points up. That's jobs too. When you look at the stock market, okay, those could be your jobs that are being affected. So, like Jaime's right, please research into what's going on, like what's causing it, where is it hitting, how could you avoid it, all those things. Don't just go to Costco and buy 12 packs of water, those big 24 packs of water, and then toilet paper and I don't know what else. Don't start stocking up on MREs if you don't know what's going on. Just really research it, and please don't buy into the fear pandemic pandering that's going on by the media right now. Just really research, really take a step back and find out, okay, what exactly do I need to do? And that's pretty much my 2 cents.
And not only that, remember the largest killer is the flu.
I'm not, yeah.
And that's like a curable disease. Okay? Let's just be that simple. Like, you're most likely to die from a flu than you are from coronavirus. So we'll leave it at that. Thank you for tuning in to MM Talk. We go on to Super Tuesday.
Yeah. The comeback kid.
So
Vice President Joe Biden.
We heard a lot of stuff going on, Eddie.
Yeah.
Joe Biden, we just heard earlier Joe Biden, right?
Mm-hmm.
Talking about how he beat Sanders.
Right.
Sanders received about 50 million. I'm rounding it up. It's 46 million, but 50 million cash, right? Donors.
Yeah,
he raised $50 million in his campaign, right? From small donors that average about $20 per donor, right? Mm-hmm. Joe Biden, I don't know his war chest. Do you know his war chest?
No, but it was nothing near Sanders. And I mean, I'm going to get into it a little bit, but this was so, if you're into politics like we are, man, this is what you hope for. I don't care what party's running, but this is like the stuff that we look at. This is the stuff we're going like, yeah, let's go. Because Joe Biden had no money for TV ads. Right, he didn't run any TV ads at any of the states he won, and we'll get into that. He barely started doing some fundraising in California and stuff like that, but it wasn't really anything. Like you could say, anything out of South Carolina. Everybody, look here at MM Talk, we called them Dead Man Walking. We were with the established media, as Bernie likes to say, because it was just the way he was doing in the first primaries, right? Mm-hmm. The losing of the African American vote to Bernie in South Carolina was another factor, but also just his performances in the debate, they weren't that great. Mm-hmm. So if you're looking at analytically, you could say, yeah, I don't know if President Biden can even survive South Carolina. It doesn't look like it, but he was confident. His campaign was confident. Okay, I guess telling all those Nelson Mandela stories worked out for him. I'm just
well, just going back, sorry to interrupt, but going back. So, Sanders raised about $50 million for his campaign, and Joe Biden barely has $9 million.
Wow.
So he's like quadruple, right?
Right.
The amount of he's beating everybody. Sanders currently has the most money in his campaign, which in politics equals to winning right? Yeah. The more money you have in your campaign, the more likely you are to win. Mm-hmm. Why? Because like Eddie said, you buy campaign ads. You saw the Bloomberg ads? You remember that?
Oh, God.
Bloomberg, who stand against Trump.
Mike
English
can do
Spanish. Mike can do it. That costs millions of dollars.
Yeah.
Okay? If you ain't got the money for that, you ain't going to have those going around.
We'll get to that in a minute, too.
So, what I wanted to start the conversation with is that Is Bernie Sanders weaponizing that idea that he has corporate donors? Because remember, the Democrats were running on a platform of grassroots movement, no super PACs, no money for millionaires and billionaires, because we want the American people to make their voice. We don't want corporate interests behind us. Now, do you think Bernie is weaponizing that tactic in order to get more votes towards him, especially coming into closer to the convention?
He's gonna have to. He's gonna have to, because that's his base, like you're saying, right? Mm-hmm. That's his base. We don't want the corporate tag. We don't want the corporate tags on us. We don't want to be like NASCAR. We don't want those people. That goes everything against everything he stands for, essentially.
And a majority of candidates stood for too, right? Sanders went on that platform.
Yeah.
Buttigieg, well, not Buttigieg, but Castro tried to go with that.
Castro. The more progressive.
Harris.
Yeah. The more
Booker tried to go with that.
Yeah. That kind of non-corporate way.
Non-corporate fundraising.
Non-corporate fundraising. So yeah, at this point, I think he will have to weaponize it as a rallying call to whatever base is still willing to go out there and support him after Super Tuesday, because even in his speeches, his tone changed. His tone went, for the political revolution, we're going to take the White House. And that went to, whatever happens, whatever candidate's up there, if we are for the American worker, we will stand next. We will beat that candidate. What happened to the revolution, and we're gonna take San Juan Hill and all that stuff? I mean, it just in 24 hours, the way that changed. You know, he's gonna be like, we're gonna go up to the corporate elite and the establishment elite, and that's why. And even in that interview, they brought that point up when Bernie Sanders said it. He's gonna have to use that from here on out.
So Joe Biden says that we all know clearly, if you're familiar with politics or have some not vague but a little familiarity with politics, in a Democratic nomination, you need the black vote. I know people have been hyping up the Latino vote and the Latino vote and the Latino vote, but Latino vote hasn't been a consistent voters well enough to say we actually need them. They're hoping to get their vote because there's a lot of them who are potential voters in November. So it's betting on a chance. It's like putting money on the newest iPhone that you still don't have idea what's coming out yet, but you have an idea that you have an understanding that it's going to be important down the road. So the black vote is really important for the Democratic Party. And I think Joe Biden, what he just said is that he clearly said it. I got the black vote.
Yeah, that's what he said.
That's what he said. And you need the black vote in order to win the Democratic nomination.
Which is true.
And he won it across the board on the South, in South Carolina?
North and South.
North and South Carolina, and in Texas.
Or he says no, South Carolina.
Yeah, those two guys right there. You know, the bunk bed Carolinas.
Perfect point, Hyman. Perfect point on the whole Latino aspect.
So we're all hyping up Latino votes, and we're Latinos, and we were
hyping it up.
We were hyping it up because we're even talking about, if you guys remember in the past, how much of the Latino vote will go to Trump, right? And even listening to radio stations, Eddie, can you tell me some callers calling to Spanish-speaking radio stations and what they were feeling against Sanders? Yeah, and Trump, how they were talking about it before Super Tuesday. Yeah, and then we can move on to more numbers.
So I try to listen to Spanish political radio because there's not a big market for it. So I try to. So I looked up. It was just Google Univision found it. So I listened to. It's called Tu Voz Los Angeles, right? It's by KTNQ Los Angeles. You can tune in at 10:20 a.m.
Are they just purely politics, or is it just a show and they happen to speak about politics?
They focus on various topics, but politics keeps coming up, especially right now with the primary election and going on. And so pre-Super Tuesday, I am not kidding. Anybody but Trump. Anybody but Trump.
Wait, the
callers.
The callers were saying that.
The majority of the callers were anybody but Trump. There were some callers who were saying, no, I like Trump. I like what Trump has done for the economy. I like what Trump has said, and I don't, even though I don't like his delivery, he's been right, and I'm gonna vote for Trump. Those some callers.
Those callers were kind of more of the Latino business owners, right?
Latino business owners, which you'll see.
We'll dive in later.
We'll dive in a second, yeah. So that was that. After Super Tuesday, that dynamic changed. Are you gonna say, well, what do you mean that changed? Because even in MM Talk, if you look at our Instagram page, we posted what Univision was projecting, and we were saying it too, but we just didn't know how big that projection was. That the majority of the Latino vote was gonna go to Senator Sanders. We said that, and we looked at it. What's it? 42% of the projected voters were gonna go vote for Sanders, and then the primaries happened. So California was good. Okay, California was good as far as how strong the Latino vote was going to be and how that would impact the election here in California. But what happened? Super Tuesday happened. The dynamic changed. Okay?
Well, we thought there was a sure win for Sanders after Nevada. Because he did
Nevada too. Thank you. So Nevada, Senator Sanders won majority of the Latino vote. Because of what? Grassroots movement and young voters. He carried that momentum to California because he was already campaigning in California. Guys, I had people at my door for the Sanders campaign trying to deliver those little pamphlets for me. And I said, no, thanks. He's like, why? I don't want it. Okay, I'll leave it at that. But that's how big they're like, yeah, we just want to spread the word about Bernie and Bernie and Bernie and Bernie and Bernie. So there were people coming around, and that established that good foundation for Sanders. So we thought.
So they did do a lot of grassroots.
They did.
And knock on doors.
And I was
that works. That
works. And I was like, damn, the hype of the Latino vote may be real. It may be real. Like, if Nevada, which is a diverse state, can do it, California, which is overwhelming, a lot of its population, 15 million Latinos live here in California. And you're telling me that he's getting about half of the Latino population. That's big, right? Then you're like, okay, man, that's a major impact on the Latino vote. And then Texas, which is also another Latino majority. I'm like, oh my goodness. So as analytics again are coming in, right at the time, you're like, oh, Joe Biden's done.
Yeah,
the moderates are done, right? That's what we said. The moderates are done, and people are going to swing to that, to that base of the Democratic Party. But
I think the interesting part too is that we were actually paying attention to what people are saying, right?
Yeah.
And I think here in MM Talk, if you guys remember our past videos, we talked about how a lot of the campaigns weren't listening to actual Latino voters. They weren't actually reaching out to them, right? So we confirmed that Sanders did do great outreach for Latinos, but we were actually paying attention to, and like Eddie said, to what they're saying. So we started listening to Spanish radio. We listened to what they're saying, callers, the radio personalities that have a large influence on Latinos, especially when they commute. They have the radio on. We have Piolín, we have La Chocolata, we have Erasmo, we have all those people, who are big influences in the Latino community in terms of radio personalities, because it's easier to listen to radio while you're working, right, than watching TV or CNN or Univision to get home. So as we were listening to the callers, not so much the pundits, we realized that a majority of Latinos were supporting Sanders, were not supporting Sanders. In the sense that if it was, and one of these hosts gave the scenario, if it's a Sanders versus Trump campaign, a majority of listeners and dial-in callers said that they'd rather vote for Trump. That they hate the man, they despise the man. And there's people who talked good about him. Obviously, there's good people who talked good about him, and there's people who said like he's the idiot, he's racist, whatever. But I'd rather vote for Trump than a socialist, right? And the majority of people were calling in were saying that, right? So that was our method of trying to, as we got closer to Super Tuesday, trying to see, okay, where is this trend going? We have reports from Telemundo, Univision saying that Latinos are going for Sanders and how they're pumped up for Latinos. And, in MM Talk, we look at the analysis. We break it down to see what's really going on, right? Where's all the hype coming from? So in that scenario, the Sanders versus Trump scenario was, I'd rather vote for Trump. Like, I hate the man. I hate him. But I'd rather vote for Trump than get a socialist president. And that was a good majority of that call. We tried recording it. My phone just froze and wasn't able to finish recording. Eddie tried recording too, but his phone just went out on that too. But it's just those types of callers are Latinos. So a majority of Latinos. So how does that, now that I said that, why did Latinos give Bernie Sanders the win in California, but didn't give him the win in Texas? Because those two states, hands down, have most Latino voters in any state in the country. Yep. Right? More than Nevada, more than, Colorado and so on and so forth, which Colorado went to Bernie, whatever. But California and Texas have the most. California, you said, has 15 million Latinos so far. And Texas has about 12 million almost 12 million. 11.4 million Latinos. One state gave the win to Bernie, and the other state gave the win to Biden. How does that work, Eddie?
So in California, the Latino vote was not as divided as you saw in Texas.
Okay.
And there's two ways of division that I'm talking about. Vice President Biden stuck to the old formula that I was telling Jaime. Get the black vote, right? And then as you go west, as you get more diverse, you could tap into that. In Texas, let me start with Texas first. Texas, because Texas, he won the African American vote overwhelmingly in Texas as well. Vice President Joe Biden.
Okay, Joe Biden. Gotcha. So how many black? What's the population in Texas for blacks? 2 million people.
2 million people.
2 million people. 2 million blacks live in Texas.
Right.
And of the 2 million, 20% of those 2 million came out to vote.
Right.
Right. And of those 20 million, 58% voted for Biden, and 15 voted for Sanders. Why is that important, Eddie?
So is it one more time?
Of the 20% who voted in the state of Texas, who are black, right? 20% of the black vote in Texas came out and vote.
Right.
Of those 20% of the entire population, 58% came out and voted for Biden.
Yeah,
Right?
because it sticks. It affirms what he said to be true. That as a Democratic candidate and to be that strong moderate candidate, you're gonna need the African American vote, and he appealed to that. He talked about what prison reform. You know, he talked about exploring the thing for reparations. You know, a committee for reparations. All those things that
Reparations, God.
are being repeated for the African American community. He said that for so many years. He's that Obama era Democrat. He's got that established base. Senator Sanders did not attach himself to that. See, he counted on that momentum of the Latino vote that helped him in Nevada, that was gaining momentum in California, right? But not so much strong in Texas, because like I said, the majority of the population there is one of the largest African American populations there.
So that doesn't make sense. So you have a lesser population of blacks in Texas, but a larger population of Latinos, right? So you did answer the question. So blacks came out to vote for Biden because, let's face it, he is a moderate, and he was the vice president to the first black president, right? Like, he's our guy.
Yeah.
How does that even
Yeah,
the numbers don't add up, right?
Well,
so
that's what I was going to get to
what's the
step
real
two.
breakdown?
That's what I was going to step two.
So let's go step two.
Step two, I said the one was the formula. Step two is the division in the Latino vote. You see, when we were hyping it up, we were all saying, Latinos are united. The Latino vote is going to be united for either side, right?
Gotcha.
So it's going to be like, if they're all saying they're going to go for Sanders, or the majority saying they're going to go for Sanders, that's what I said. We believed into the hype that it's going to carry momentum. In Texas, that was not the case. The young vote was overwhelming for Sanders, right? If you look at ages 18 to 29, he got 58% of that.
Okay, so
he
let's
got 15% of ages 18 to 29, right?
Yeah. So before we go down to the breakdown, let's just give a quick background. Of the 11.4 million Latinos in Texas, 32% of them came out and voted. So even a larger number of Latinos came out to vote than blacks.
Right.
But this is the breakdown that is important to understand as Univision and Telemundo try to hype up the whole everyone's going for Sanders. You have to break down the numbers, right? So
let's mention
of the 32% of Latinos, 39% voted for Sanders, right? And 27 voted for Biden.
Right.
Okay? But the important thing is what now Eddie's going to give us.
So you say, well, Eddie, you just said that 39% of the Latino went for Sanders. How does that still make sense? Formula 1, you need the black vote. Formula 2, the Latino vote was divided. 18 to 29, 15% voted, and out of that 15%, 58 went to Sanders. The next age bracket, 42% went to Sanders. Now we're getting into the age brackets of 45 to 64 and 65 plus. Both of those categories went to Vice President Joe Biden.
So you're saying that the majority of the Latino vote were Latinos age 45, between 18 and 45, right? That block went to Bernie Sanders.
Yes.
But Latinos who were 45 and up decided to vote for Joe Biden.
Yeah.
So that's the split in the Latino vote in Texas.
And you saw similar trends in California, right? You saw similar trends in California where the...
Okay, before we go to California, sorry. I'm not trying. Before we go to California. So you're pretty much saying that the voting block 45 and up gave Joe Biden the win.
Yes, as far as
combined with the black vote.
Right?
It gave Joe Biden the win in Texas.
Yes, and there was also other key factors in there, like same-day voting versus mail-in voting. But you understand, the minority vote, which is important, which is everybody's hyping up for Latinos, is divided. For African Americans, it's clearly going to Biden. Right? So the formula is now like, okay, so we got the big awakening down here, but that's divided, and then you have the black. So who do I got to tap to, right? So
the division and the black vote put together,
yes,
gave Joe Biden the win
in Texas,
amongst
other factors too. But that to understand the Latinos and how we're voting right now, we cannot buy into that hype. Really, if Texas is an indication of things to come, because Texas is a world more diverse state too. It's diverse. So is California. So yeah. So it was interesting to see. Texas was really fun. I was texting the guy, dude. Biden's about to take Texas. He's gonna take Texas.
I was like, no, Sanders.
Dude, he's gonna take San Antonio. What are you talking about?
I said Sanders is gonna take Texas because of the Latino vote. And remember, and that's because Univision and Telemundo have been saying that Latinos in Nevada voted for Sanders.
Right.
Therefore, the Latinos in Texas are more likely to vote for Sanders.
Right.
But what we didn't expect, right,
is the division
between the 45 and under group and the 45 and over group.
Yeah.
The 45 and over group went to Joe Biden, and the 45 under group went to Sanders, which makes sense, right?
Makes a lot of sense because it's stuff that we tied into before as far as generation voting, first, second generation, and all. It's all tied in. So Texas really gave us that whole gap, that thing in the age groups that we talked about. Now we saw it in action. So now you saw that Texas provided us with that. Yeah.
So that's it. So that gave us pretty much the black vote, the strong black vote in Texas, and the strong 45 plus Latino vote in Texas gave Joe Biden the win, right? So I guess not all Latinos are for Sanders then.
No, and it was evident. Look, I'm not.
So does that mean that Latinos in Texas don't care about free healthcare and free education?
No, that's what I was going to get to. So that's what I was going to get to. So, like, the reason I didn't want to go into California too much is because this was more reflective as to what we analyzed before, the reality of the vote. But it's not that they don't care about healthcare. It's because they do care about healthcare, but they care about affordable healthcare. They care about taxes. They care about being more modern. Okay, we understand the economy is great, but it's not great for everybody. So you have Joe Biden like, yeah, there's systemic racism. Systemic racism is hindering you from getting these jobs and well-paying jobs and affordable healthcare. They don't want the message of the Democrats. That's okay. We can probably buy into that. But we cannot buy into nationalized healthcare medicine. We cannot buy into Medicare for all, We cannot buy into free education for everybody. Because if I'm 45 years old, I'm already thinking retirement. How am I going to take care of my Social Security? How am I going to take care? I'm a business owner. So those are the people that you got to understand. And it also reflects to what I heard from callers that following Wednesday. The
day after Super Tuesday?
Wednesday after Super Tuesday. And I'm tuning in, and I'm hearing the following. This is California, because this is California, right? And they were saying, "Who were you voting for?" Anybody but Sanders. I'm like, what the heck just happened? I know we had a crazy night, but I was gonna vote for Sanders. But the more I listened to him, and the more I listened to his ideas, I voted Bloomberg. What the heck? I'm like, Bloomberg. And then other callers were saying Biden. Bloomberg, Biden, which tells you what? That Latinos in California, even though he won the majority of it, right? There was Latinos in California who said, you know what? I'd rather vote for the moderate guy. The guy that's gonna take care of those issues that I may have at a certain age group, right? And a lot of people that were calling in were the business owners. Were the people that were working long hours. Were the people saying, well, you're going to raise my taxes? We could barely afford to live in California. Now you want to raise my taxes even further? I can't vote for a candidate like that. And there was a third group too. Who's the guy that can beat Trump? That was the other one. And a lot of callers, guys, feel that Bernie Sanders is not that candidate because Bernie Sanders only appeals to the young, appeals to ideas that cannot be implemented. A lot of people were talking about the process, which I was very proud of too. They were saying, how's that guy going to get it past the Senate? How's that going to get past the House? I'm like, yes, thank you. And I was like, So
they're understanding American politics.
Yeah, like, how are you going to get there? How? Like, he has no shot. I can't vote for that. That's why I voted Bloomberg. I voted Biden. And I'm like...
They want real solutions, right? Instead of this whole...
Yeah.
Let's just fix it with, government takeover of everything.
So that's the dynamic of the Latino vote, guys. So what we're trying to get to...
So now in California, so Texas, we see that Latinos are more moderate, right?
Yeah.
They're more moderate based
Texas, yes.
in Texas, right?
Yeah.
Now let's look at California because, a large percent of Latinos still came out and voted in California.
Right.
And they gave Sanders the win, right?
Right.
So I think there's a difference. More factors that led to why Sanders won in California and Biden won in Texas, right? So, of the 15 million Latinos in California, 26% came out and voted. Of those 26% of Latinos who voted, 49% voted for Sanders and 22% voted for Biden, right? The black population in California, there's 2 million. Wow, we're eating them up, dude.
But look,
Sorry.
Keep going.
Oh, they're mixing now. They got to mix. They got to survive. 7% of the 2 million black Americans in California, 7% voted, right? 37% went to Biden. So the black vote is favorable more to Biden, right? 15% went to Sanders. Now, we see the same breakdown, right? In California. The 18 to 44, ages 18 to 44 voted Sanders.
Yeah.
11% of ages 18 to 29, college age, came out to vote. 11%. That's low. But 61% of those guys voted for Sanders. Now, when I say guys, I mean in plurality. It's not because, it's all about guys, okay? Just for the record.
Right.
40 to 44, ages 40 to 40, 30 to 44, 24% came out and voted. That's still a low number, right? But 57% of those guys voted for Sanders, which is pretty much close to Texas. If you go down the list, Texas and California tend to have almost the same voting. They're close.
Yeah, but what's the one key factor I told you needed? Joe Biden's new formula. Look at the black vote.
Yeah.
There were
more black votes in Texas, so that he won. 20% came out.
But so compared
and
to
California, only 7%. So he lost California because not enough black people came out to vote for him.
So that's what I'm saying. You still need the black vote to win. So when I'm saying he understood the old formula. I need the black vote, but as I'm heading west, I still need to add the other group.
So pretty much in California, Sanders won because there wasn't enough momentum of the black vote in California.
Yes, exactly. Right? Yes.
And not enough black voters came out to vote for Sanders have given Sanders the win. Because the numbers are pretty much close.
Given that cushion, that probably would have eliminated even that 15% for President Biden, right? That would have stolen delegates from.
Yeah.
So he didn't even need to worry about the Latino vote is so overwhelming in California, he didn't need to worry about that. So I'm talking Senator Sanders. Senator Biden, Senator Biden, I don't think he's running for Senate too. Vice President Biden, right? Because maybe he did not campaign as much out here, he could not really tap into that Latino vote. Also, the Latino vote was split between the two moderates, Bloomberg and Biden. So there's even a split within the moderate vote, like who was the more valuable candidate. But the big picture is, yes, what you just said. The whole.
So if more black people had to come out to vote Joe Biden in California,
that's not enough. Still,
it still would have been.
I still don't believe because of the just based on the number of votes that would have been available. You're talking 15 versus 2 million, 15 versus 2 million. Then in the percentages of eligible electoral votes.
Well, there's about 2 million in Texas too, and they gave Joe Biden
No. Yeah, but he also
and then 2 million and 2 million in California. So the numbers are pretty much similar in such a way.
Yes, but Joe Biden also tapped to a larger number of Latinos in Texas than he did in. It's not a big margin of difference, but he also tapped into a larger number of Hispanic votes in Texas. That's what I'm trying to get to.
Gotcha.
So what I'm trying to say is that he needed to tap into the Hispanic vote to provide him with more of a cushion. But unfortunately, at the time, he also had Mike Bloomberg.
So he had less of a... So of the 45 and up, 45 plus group of voters, they didn't give Joe Biden enough votes for him to win California.
Pretty much. He still needed to tap into that.
Because the 45 and plus in California voted for Biden. But the percentage are smaller.
It's smaller, yeah.
Than what they voted for in Texas.
Yeah, so I'm saying, maybe, like I said, it's probably not campaigning, not tapping into. He needed to tap into, but even then, like I said, you still had a Bloomberg to deal with, and that also hindered him from.
And also to look at the larger picture too, and why Biden won Texas, and Sanders won California. I can only speak for California. California is hell of expensive. Hell of expensive. Hell of expensive. Hell of expensive. I thank God we didn't pass Prop 13. Thank you, California. Oh, God. We were actually rational on that part, man. We were like, oh, what about the children?
Let's not.
But yet, $15 billion, $30 billion down the road, who's going to pay for that? It's already hard enough to live in California.
Yeah.
Unless you go to the boondocks, like outskirts of California, you might get affordable housing, but you're out of middle of nowhere. Okay? You're like Courage the Cowardly Dog from old school Nickelodeon stuff.
Wow.
Right? Out there in the middle of nowhere. Okay? But California is so expensive to live in. San Diego County is expensive. LA County is expensive. Orange County. San Francisco ni se hable. Right? And then you got the in-between, right? The middle of the state, which is the pretty much the center, right? Which is the valley, right? Which is the agricultural centers, which is very poor, right? Tend to be very poor cities of very, very poor regions. It's still hard to get by there. The coastal cities, don't even talk about it. $23 million homes right in front of the beach, that's a lot, right? Ain't no one gonna afford that. So I think also a lot of people voted for Sanders because of the free healthcare, the free education, of, we're gonna help you survive, living wage, and all that stuff in a very expensive state.
Yeah.
Right? And I think that's also helped propel a lot of the Latino vote to come out in support of Sanders, because there's a lot of Latino voters who may not have the privileges of other people to live in California, right? It's expensive. It's expensive to live in California. I mean, Santa Barbara, for goodness sake. Telemundo was talking about Santa Barbara. I mean, how many Latinos live in Santa Barbara? Not so many. Okay? Yeah. But the Latinos who live in Santa Barbara voted for Sanders. Well, yeah, they're probably doing the low-end jobs, probably housekeeping, probably doing janitorial work. And we're not making fun of our raza for that. We're proud of it. But we're looking at occupation and salary-wise compared to the Latinos' salary compared to non-Latino salaries, right? So, and remember, we talked about LA Times, talking about all that inequality, how Latinos are affected by Democratic policies more than any Republican policies, right? So I think that's why a lot of Latinos voted for Sanders in California, because California is very expensive to live in. What's your final thoughts?
No, yeah, and it's so. My final thoughts is that we can no longer buy into the hype that the Latino vote is predictable, because you're gonna, and this is just the primary. It's gonna be more interesting in the general, to see how the Latino support goes to Trump and how the Latino support goes to Biden. The age group,
if he becomes a nominee.
If he becomes, okay, all right.
If he becomes a nominee,
all right. So if whoever the Democrat nominee is,
who could he be?
Whoever that guy is, one of the old two white guys. Keep in mind, President Trump is now the youngest candidate for president in this election cycle. But anyways, so yeah, man, that's crazy. But it's gonna see how the Latino vote's gonna swing, and I think when you get to the general election, you are gonna see what we've talked about here in MM Talk: the young vote versus the older vote, first generation Latino versus second. It's gonna be interesting to see, and it's already evident now. It's gonna be even more interesting in the general election. So
we'll keep an eye on our Latino voters and see how they vote down the road, and we'll keep listening to radio and comments between people as they speak on radio, call into radio shows, and as well as we interact with them. So with that, we'll close MM Talk. Thank you for joining us this week. We are your host, Jaime Moreno.
And Eddie Marmolejo.
And remember, we're tired of it too.